Swaminarayan sakshat akshara purushottamaha sarvebhya paramam shantim anandam sukham arpayet. Today I want to go back to the beginning, not to when Mahan Swami Maharaj gave us the Satsang Diksha Shastra on Guru Purnima, but to the beginning, the very beginning, the beginning of time. When Bhagwan created this world, at Satya Yuga, people lived for 100,000 years. And at that time, they had no factories to go work in, they had no stores to open, and every house had a kalpavruksha, which means whatever they wanted, they could get instantly. So this leaves one major question. What do you do to pass the time? So our Rishi Munis, they were great. They didn't just pass the time with time pass, they did sadhana. And they were enlightened. And whatever wisdom they gained from Bhagwan, they wrote it down. And they wrote down so much, thousands of mantras, thousands of shloks. And in the process, we ended up with infinite shastras, aneka shastram. And these are all scriptures. And that means that everything in the scriptures is worth knowing. This isn't like any other novel where 80% of it might be background or fluff. Every single line, word, letter of the scriptures has some essence behind it, has something we need to understand. Everything in the scriptures is worth knowing. Bahu veditavyam. But then time passes. From Satya Yuga to Treta, from Treta to Dwapar, and Dwapar Yuga to now Kali Yuga. When Mahan Swami Maharaj was doing Nirupan of Satsang Diksha, in one shlok he said that right now, at most, people live for 100 years. That's all the lifespan we have left. Alpascha kalo, time is short. And even to get to 100 years is very difficult. You get a blood test and the doctor tells you that your good cholesterol is bad, your bad cholesterol is worse, sugar is high, vitamins are low, you need to change so many things in your life. It'd be easier to just change the doctor, but you have to change everything else. Bhavascha vigna, so many obstacles. So this is our situation. Aneka shastram, bahu veditavyam, alpascha kalo, bhavascha vigna. So what do? Yatsara bhutam tadupasitavyam. Just study the essence of all the scriptures. When Mahan Swami Maharaj inaugurated the Satsang Diksha Shastra, that's what he said. He said from the beginning of Maharaj's time, in the beginning of all satsang, this is the sar. This Satsang Diksha is the essence of everything. Shakespeare has written in Hamlet that brevity is the soul of wit. If that's true, then this proves that Mahan Swami Maharaj is an absolute genius. What we would never be able to even read through in 100 lifetimes, he was able to condense down into just 315 shloks. Today, we're going to study one relationship that Mahan Swami Maharaj has dedicated almost 10% of the Shastra behind. That's who we relate to, who we associate ourselves with in satsang. My relationship with other satsangis. In that, Mahan Swami Maharaj has separated it into two parts, kusang and satsang. And at the beginning, he explains that sang is the most important thing. He says in shlok number 216, Sangotra balavan loke, yatha sangam hi jivanam, satah sangam atah kuryat, kusangam sarvatha tyajet. Gunatitanand Swami, Shiji Maharaj, everyone has had this same siddhant that in the entire world, the most powerful thing is who we associate ourselves with. Shiji Maharaj goes to the extent where he says that in Gadara section 1, number 70, that within us there is a satsangi and a kusangi. Outside there's also a satsangi and a kusangi. Who we associate with outside, that will give strength to the person inside of us. Mahan Swami Maharaj gives an example for this. He says that within every pore of our body we have infinite amounts of bacteria and viruses. Now the air we breathe, if that's filled with bad bacteria, then the bad bacteria within us, that gains strength. That amount grows. And then we fall sick. The outside environment we associate with has a direct impact on what's inside of us. So that's why they say, Ke kusangam sarvatha tyajet. That's how Mahan Swami Maharaj has ended this shlok. In every way, in every location, and at every time, avoid kusang at all costs. Now we're going to spend the rest of this Katha looking at various shlokas about kusang and satsang. One of the main kusangs that we want to talk about today is described in shlok number 224. In that shlok, Mahan Swami Maharaj has written that within satsang we should avoid kusang. And as a definition of what is that kusang within satsang, we have to go back a few pages in the Shastra to shlok number 138. In that shlok, Mahan Swami Maharaj has written, Shrunuyat na vaded napi, vartam hinam balena cha. The kusang within satsang is someone who does morivat. For almost 10 shloks within Satsang Diksha, Mahan Swami Maharaj has listed people to avoid. These are people within satsang who talk bad about niyam dharma, talk bad about seva, talk bad about tap, say something discouraging to us. We shouldn't hear them. We're going to look at different shloks. For example, in shlok number 225, Mahan Swami Maharaj says we should avoid people who say discouraging things about niyam dharma, who say discouraging things about our devotion. And for example, we do Ekadashi twice a month. 5 times a year we do Nirjala Upvas. Mahan Swami Maharaj in 2011 was in India, and in the winter months there was a Karyakar Shibir. In that Karyakar Shibir he had a speech, and that speech was titled Mori Vata Kadi Na Kariye, this same topic. And the day he was giving his speech, it was Ekadashi. So Mahan Swami Maharaj in his Katha, he says, let me tell you a prasang about Ekadashi from my own life. And Mahan Swami Maharaj's prasang is like this, that when he was a yuak traveling with Yogiji Maharaj, Vinubhai was his name, and Vinubhai one time he did Upvas, Nirjala Upvas. And it was so hard for him to get through the day that when he went to sleep at night, he wasn't able to completely go to sleep. He woke up very early, took a shower, and was doing his puja. And Swami says that at that time, a haribhakto from Shastriji Maharaj's time, a very senior devotee, he came, and while Mahan Swami was doing his puja, Vinubhai was doing his puja, he came and he put a glass of lemonade, limbu nu pani, near Mahan Swami Maharaj. And Mahan Swami Maharaj, he saw it, and he was amazed. Nobody had told this haribhakta that I'm doing upvas, but he must have seen Vinubhai struggle throughout the time and realized that he's doing upvas. So on his own, he gathered all the ingredients, he did all the work himself. He woke up in the morning, prepared the limbu pani, and while Vinubhai was doing his puja, he put the glass. Mahan Swami Maharaj explained that if somebody did all of that for you without you asking them, you would naturally have some sort of affection towards them. But then he goes on to explain that as he put the glass down, he said something to me. He looked at me, I looked at him, and he said, why are you killing yourself doing this to yourself? Why? What are you gaining out of it? I see how you struggle. Don't you realize Yogiji Maharaj is already happy with you? Ito Rajit che. And then he said, look, I used to do these types of upvases in Shastriji Maharaj's time. I used to struggle like this, but then one day it clicked to me that with my seva and my other bhakti, Shastriji Maharaj to Raji chej. So there's no need for me to hurt myself by going through all these upvases. And Vinubhai, Mahan Swami Maharaj explains that as he gave that cold limbu nu pani, sathe sathe mori vat api didi. But Vinubhai says that luckily by the grace of Yogiji Maharaj, I wasn't taken into it. In shlok number 221, Mahan Swami Maharaj, he says that we should avoid people who denounce various forms of devotion. All of us who come to mandir, we have different sevas. Now when Vinubhai was traveling with Yogiji Maharaj, Mahan Swami Maharaj, he says the prasang that we were near Mahua in the village of Tarnesa. During Sabha one time, Dr. Swami was also a yuak, he was doing pravachan. His name was Raman Bhai. Raman Bhai was doing Katha and he was doing such a great job. But at that time when Vinubhai was sitting in the audience, another haribhakta, a senior devotee, he came and he elbowed Vinubhai. He said, look at it. He's doing such a great job, Raman Bhai. He's going to be famous one day for his speeches. And look at you. What do? You just wash dishes all day. And then the haribhakta said, look, you need to learn how to speak properly like Dr. Raman Bhai. Otherwise, nobody will know you in satsang. You're just going to have to pass your time washing dishes. People will treat you like a slave. And Vinubhai thought about this. On the one side, he's taking Raman Bhai's gun, and on the other side, he's telling me what's wrong with me. Mahan Swami Maharaj described that people who do morivat, they may actually think they're doing us a favor. They're helping us. And the second Vinubai started to hear these words and started to think about it, Yogiji Maharaj's turn came and he started doing Katha. Yogiji Maharaj did Mangla Charan, and the first Vakya he said in his Katha was, by Shastriji Maharaj's Agna, all I've done for the last 40 years is wash dishes. અને જો અત્યારે કેફના ગાળે ગાળા છૂટે છે. બધું ધોઈ નાખ્યું, મોડી વાત, kusang. He got rid of all of it right away. So this is what kusangis do. They come to us, they say a few things. As we heard in the first, Narsi Mehta has written, Bhakti bhavano bheda na jane, bhurayo theine bhare re. He doesn't understand bhakti the way it's supposed to be understood, and he gives his own definitions. In shloks number 217, 218, Mahan Swami Maharaj has written many different qualities of a person to avoid. One such person is someone who is kapti. Again, we're talking about people who just say morivat. A kapti person, they use their deceitful words to kind of have us fall away from Bhagwan, from Satsang. For this, we want to look at one traditional example from the Ramayan. A story you may know, but let's look at it in some detail. Dashrath was king and he had 3 wives, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi. Kaushalya's son was Ramchandra Bhagwan. Sumitra had twins, Lakshman and Shatrughna, and Kaikeyi's son was Bharatji. Dashrath, in his old age, he realized that I need to give somebody else the kingdom, and he decided that Ramchandra Bhagwan will be coronated as king. He consulted his ministers and he decided that the next morning we're going to make Ram Bhagwan the king of Ayodhya. Now this news spread all throughout Ayodhya. That morning, Kaikeyi was still sleeping. Kaikeyi had a maid servant who had been with her from when she was a child. And she was a trusted friend, ally. She had actually come with Kaikeyi after the wedding, and her name was Mantra. If this was Bal Sabha, this is the point where they would add some thunder and lightning effects to it, Mantra. But her name was Mantra. She came into Kaikeyi's room and Kaikeyi was sleeping, and she said, Uttishta, like how we do in puja, Uttishta Sahajananda. But we're waking up Bhagwan, she's waking up Kaikeyi. She's not happy about what's happening. She said, Uttishta Mude, get up, you fool. How can you be sleeping here when you're surrounded by danger? Kaikeyi hears the word danger, she gets up. What's wrong? Has something happened to Ram? Has something happened to Dashrath? Is Lakshman okay? Where is Bharat? Is he okay? She asks about Ram first. Second is Dashrath. Bharat, her own son, is fourth. Mantra says, look, everything is fine in a way, but Ramchandra Bhagwan, tomorrow morning, he's going to be coronated as king, and you're here sleeping? Kaikeyi hears that, and she's happy. She's like, oh, Ramchandra Bhagwan's going to be king. That's good news. How can that be dangerous? He said, don't you understand? That's only half the news. If Ramchandra Bhagwan is king, that means your son, Bharat, is not king. Samjhai che? You should understand this. Kaikeyi responds, what's the big deal? Rameva, Bharateva. For me, they're the same. Na upalakshe. I don't see any difference between the two of them. So if Ram is king, it's just as good as if Bharat is king. Mantra is not happy with this. She realizes that Kaikeyi is not going to respond to me quickly. I need to start slow. If you put someone into boiling hot water right away, they'll jump out. But if you put them into, some normal hot temperature water and you just slowly raise the temperature, you can boil them alive. It just takes some time. So Mantra says, look, I don't want to say anything bad, but I have my doubts. That's it. And if I can't air them out, then what else can I do? I can tell you my doubts, right? And Kaikeyi said, fine. Ramchandra Bhagwan will marry Janak's daughter Sita. Lakshman will marry Janak's other daughter Urmila. Dashrath Raja goes from Ayodhya to Mithila, and all of a sudden he has his own internal discussion with Janak Raja and decides that with your 2 nieces, I want to marry my other 2 children, Bharat and Shatrughna. What was it, like a package deal that arranged 2 get 2 free? Where was Bharat at that time, Kaikeyi? Kaikeyi says, Bharat was at my brother's house. Right, exactly, he was at his mama's house. He wasn't even involved in the decision. And now, today, Dashrath Raja wakes up in the morning, discusses it with a few people, and announces that Ram Bhagwan will be made king tomorrow. Where's Bharat? Kaikeyi says, he's at my brother's house. Oh, again at his mama's house. What a coincidence. I'm just saying I have my doubts. And that's all it took. She wove 3 unconnected prasangs together and made the presentation in such a way that Kaikeyi's mind slowly started to be polluted. Mahan Swami Maharaj says The words of a kusangi aren't necessarily wrong. Remember, the words of a kusangi aren't necessarily wrong. It's the presentation of them. And then mantra has said all of these different prasangs to Kaikei. Kaikei's face freezes. Do you ever use your computer and you're typing something, moving your mouse, all of a sudden the screen freezes, but you're still typing, you're still moving your mouse. When you realize it, you stop. And then everything starts again, and it's like watching instant replay of the last 10 seconds of your life. This words start to come on the screen, the cursor moves around. Kaikei's face is frozen. Mantra is just watching. She's processing all of this information in her mind. All of a sudden, she spits it all back out. You're right. Dashrath did this. Bharat was at his mama's house. Today, again, Bharat is at his mama's house. What's going on? Mantra realizes, I've got her. The die is cast. And then she continues. She says, look, Dashrath loves you more than he loves the other two wives. I know that. You know that. And if you and I know that, that means that those two women know that, Kaushalya and Sumitra. And if they know that, that means that everyone in Ayodhya knows that. Now, that's one thing. Another thing, if Ramchandra Bhagwan becomes king, that means Kaushalya becomes the queen mother. Ram's best friend is Lakshman. He has nothing to worry about. Lakshman's brother is Shatrughna. He has nothing to worry about. Lakshman and Shatrughna, their mother is Sumitra. She has nothing to worry about. That means in this entire phylum, only two people are left, you and your son. If Dashrath was always partial to someone else and you had the chance to take revenge, wouldn't you do it? So don't you think Kaushalya, Sumitra, Ramchandra Bhagwan, Lakshman, Shatrughna, they'll take some sort of revenge against you and Bharatji? That's why I'm telling you that you are surrounded by danger. And then Valmiki ji, he writes one word here. At that point, Kaikei, Vakya Vasham Gata. She was defeated by words, only words of mantra, and she was completely lost. Kaikei hears all of these things, and she says, Mantra, you're right. In all of Ayodhya, you're the only person I can trust. You're the only one who cares about me and my son. You need to tell me what I need to do. Mantra says, look, okay, if you're asking, then here's what I suggest, and then now you can insert the entire Ramayan here. This is what kusang does. Mantra's words, as Valmiki Rishi describes, were provacha bhedayanti cha raghavam. She was using her speech just to destroy the relationship between Kaikei and Ram Bhagwan. Words separated her from Bhagwan. At the end of the entire Ramayan, it says that everyone in Ayodhya left their bodies to join Bhagwan in Dham. Everyone except two people. One was Hanumanji, who stays here forever to do Ram Bhagwan's bhakti. And the other, there's no mention of mantra passing away. That means that mantra never died. In Treta Yuga, mantra was a person. And in Kali Yuga, mantra is a personality, a mantra mentality. We have to learn to recognize who is mantra. Who are the people who are using their words to separate us from Bhagwan? Provacha bhedayanti cha raghavam. It's just words. Kusang is that dangerous that we need to constantly be aware that even a simple word can take away everything we've done. Mahant Swami Maharaj gives an example. He says, imagine a wrestler who has spent 20 years in preparation eating dar, bhat, rotli, shak, so much heavy food, so much exercise and so much protein for 20 years, and then he has 1 spoon of poison. He dies. Everything he's eaten, all of that hard work for those 2 decades can go away with 1 spoon of poison. That's how concentrated the poison of kusang is. It can destroy 20 years of satsang, even more, with the 1 wrong word. Mahant Swami Maharaj has given almost 15 shloks about who to avoid in satsang. And then afterwards, he gives about 6 shloks for who to do satsang of. He spent twice as much time writing about kusang and half the time talking about satsang. So that's why we split the pravachan in the same amount of time. Now, before we talk about satsang, there are 2 things we need to understand. The balance. A lot of times it's confusing that on the one side, there is this truth that within satsang, we have to learn to recognize kusang. And on the other side, it is a truth that Mahant Swami Maharaj constantly tells us everyone in satsang is divine. Bhagwan ne bhajta, sarve hari jano divyache. Everyone is divine, and yet we're supposed to avoid certain people? How? What's the balance? Sangha is defined as who we trust. Who do we put our faith in? If you stand at a bus stand with a dozen other people, you're not doing their sung. You're just there. But who you believe, that's sung. So in any case, whenever we hear anyone, we have to ask ourselves, do these words align with the ruchi of my guru? And Mahan Swami Maharaj, he puts his hands together and he says, in any case, always ask yourself and test yourself, Satpurush taraf daro. Always go towards the Satpurush. In the shloks of Satsang, Mahan Swami Maharaj has told us who we should associate ourselves with. Now, this is a unique balance, and sometimes it's very complicated to find out who exactly we should associate ourselves with. In Maharaj's time, whenever anyone had any issue, he would send him later on to Muktanand Swami, to do Goshti with Muktanand Swami, or Brahmanand Swami, or Swarupanand Swami. These were his senior paramahansas. If anyone had any issue, they would go to them to listen to Satsang Nivato. And emathi ena bad maltu. For example, Amba Shet had Manushya Bhav and Shiji Maharaj. So Maharaj sent him to Muktanand Swami. There was a Parshad who had some issues with how to live in Satsang. Will I be able to maintain my Niyam Dharma? Maharaj had him do Goshti with Brahmanand Swami. Brahmanand Swami wrote him 4 kirtans and he stayed in Satsang. And it doesn't always go with just Paramahansa. When Swarupanand Swami himself had some problems in Satsang, Maharaj sent him to Parvat Bhai to listen to his Katha Varta. Whether he's a sadhu or he's a grahast, anyone who talks good about Satsang and all the different aspects that Mahan Swami Maharaj has written in Satsang Diksha, that person is always enthusiastic, always talks about the virtues of other Satsangis, always has nothing but good things to say, Divya Bhavni Vato, about Bhagwan and the Sun, always talks about bhakti, never wastes his time without seva, tap or devotion. We should do their sang. So it's up to us to find those people in Satsang. Maharaj che, Swami che, Satsang Diksha is our direct Goshti with Mahan Swami Maharaj, his words. In Yogiji Maharaj's time, if anyone had any issues in Satsang, he would send them to Pramukh Swami or Mahan Swami Maharaj. One time, there was a sant in Gadara, his name was Harijivan Swami. And he was handling the construction at the time. Yogiji Maharaj, his life was so pure and had so much saintliness, it would be hard to find Manushya Bhav in there. But he always had one thing that always had people doubting, and that was Yogiji Maharaj's affinity for Gondal Mandir. All the donations, anything that would come in would go to Gondal Mandir first and then be distributed, if Yogiji Maharaj allowed it. Harijivan Swami had Manushya Bhav in Yogi Bapa because of this. So he opened up to Pramukh Swami. That's the right person. And when he spoke to Pramukh Swami, Bapa sat with him at the steps of Garada Mandir late at night. Bapa spoke to him at night and then he pointed out to Garada Mandir and he explained, look, this Mandir and everything in this campus, all of this, you and me included, we're all property of Yogiji Maharaj. And if Yogiji Maharaj gave me Agna right now, I would take this entire Mandir apart, stone by stone, and throw it into the Gela River. I wouldn't wait 1 second. I wouldn't have that much of a doubt. When he heard those words of Nishta, those words of conviction from Pramukh Swami's voice, his Manushya Bhav went away. Mahan Swami Maharaj, at the end of that speech in 2011, he quotes one Swamini Vat. In chapter 5, Gunatitanand Swami says that everything that we have in Satsang today is based on words. Words. In Mahan Swami Maharaj, he explains that every Satsangi who's ever become a Kusangi has become a Kusangi because of Morivato. And every Kusangi who's ever become a Satsangi has become a Satsangi because of Varnivato. So at the end of today's speech, it's up to us to realize that we don't want to be a Kusangi. We want to avoid Kusangis. And we want to become better Satsangis. So આપણે મહારાજ અને સ્વામીને પ્રાર્થના કરીએ, જે પ્રાર્થના શ્રીજી મહારાજ has told us to do every day in the Vachnamrut, કે હે મહારાજ, હે સ્વામી, હે મહાન સ્વામી મહારાજ. You've given almost 10% of the Satsang Diksha Shastra on Kusang and Satsang. So we pray to you કે કુસંગી થકી મારી રક્ષા કરજો. અને અહમ મમત્વ રહિત એવો જે તમારા સંત, તેનો સંગ નિત્ય રહેજો.
Thank you for joining us today and listening with such devotion. Bhagwan Swaminarayan has taught us the power of listening to Katha. It purifies our mind and brings us closer to God. So if this Katha helped you, give it a like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone you care about. Until next time, Jai Swaminarayan.